All right, back to the 2011 GMC Acadia on the replacing the front brake rotors and pads. As you can see, I have everything disassembled now. Got my bleeder hanging up in there, ready to bleed it when I get everything back assembled. I've got all my parts clean. Couple important things here. The new rotor normally comes with a little coating on there. Just take a little bit of brake cleaner and rub that whole surface down. You don't want that that grease or that protective coating to get on your brakes and then cause a glaze on your brakes. So you got to clean that stuff off the surface of it before you start. Put those back together. Secondly, as you can see, I said there was 4 bolts you had to remove. There are the 4 bolts down there. The 2 large ones and then the 2 small ones. And then your screw is right there. If you can see it in the bottom of your pan down there right here. That's the one that goes in this little hole right here that you need that special tool right there, that impact screwdriver to go. But I've got everything cleaned up. As you can see, I brushed it all down, sprayed a lot of brake fluid on here, cleaned up all of those areas as best as I could to get some of that dust off of there before I put my new brakes and rotors on. Now, something important I want to show you all here, and then we'll see what the final product looks like. Also, the caliper is cleaned up, but look right here on your boot. Right up here where my finger is, you can see that rubber boot is torn. And here are the 2 pistons that I was talking about that are in your caliper that actually push the brake pad in. Now, one good thing about that is that boot or the rubber seal in here is not leaking yet. You could go ahead and replace it, which I probably will, but not in this, not on this video. Or you can just wait to see whether it is going to leak or not in the future. One good evidence of it is leaking is just wherever you park. If you ever pull out of that parking spot and this right passenger front wheel, you see something wet there, you'll probably know this boot has started to leaking. So that's very important, and that sometimes happens when you collapse these pistons that I'm tapping on here, and it'll catch that edge and then cut it. And then some mechanics will put it in with it like this, and but the good thing, keep an eye on where you park at to make sure that there's no brake fluid or anything wet at that wheel. Now, with that all said and done, so all of that is cleaned up here. Your threads for your lug nuts still look good, so that's great. And everything, a lot of people think you got to pull this center nut off in order to change the brakes, and that's what scares them, and they say, oh, I don't have a nut that big. Most cars, unless it's something very, very heavy duty, this nut is predominantly 90% of the time never have to be removed. This is the spline for the CV shaft. Probably get a better look on here. That's your CV shaft that goes through, that goes into your transmission. That is what that nut holds in, is that CV shaft, not your brake rotors. So again, only 4 bolts right there. This is how simple this is. 4 bolts, and then this little screw for your torque screwdriver, which a lot of cars do not have. And then another thing, some of the cars will have a clip that when you put your brake rotor on, it goes through here. There'll be a clip over top of this screw. They're a pain in the neck. Most people take them off and never replace them. I always just put mine back on because that's what the manufacturer calls for. But you can look for a little clip around here that's pressed up against one of these holes on the rotor. So in a nutshell, everything. Now let's go look on the other side to see what it's going to look like when it's back together. So And this is the driver's side. So here we go. This is what it's going to look like when it's back together. As you can see, it's pretty clean up in here. I did the same thing on this side. As you can see, your screw is in there. There are no clips around any of these. That's where they would be at, and they just slide over and like click, 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 click all the way back until they keep that rotor centered. So the back side looks really well. You don't feel that lip across here, and actually you can see, I got my gloves on, but you can see this little lip right here. That's a bevel that goes back like that. Once when that bevel is worn off, that's a good indication that your rotor is no good and is below the spec. So that's really all the room, if you can see that, which maybe look like maybe 20 thousandths of an inch. Once when 20 thousandths of an inch is gone off of this brake rotor, the rotor is probably by most state standards no good, and they have to be replaced. So as you can see, well, some of you probably wondering what is this red stuff in here. That is disc quiet, to keep the metal off of the caliper, off the metal of the brake pad. I spray a little brake quiet in there, and that's sort of like a buffer or absorbs the little tapping, so you won't hear that tap 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 when you hit your brakes. Also, if you can see some yellow stuff down in there, that is well, actually it's probably being pushed from this side in here. That is brake grease that you put to allow your brake rotor to slide. Your brake pad to slide in there. It's really not on this top side. It probably just pushed up and laid on that little lip right there. Some excess going up in there. So, but there's no grease in between this slide right here, the silver slide, and this caliper right here. That's just dry up in there. So there you have it. Here's your 13 millimeter bolt right here. You got one on the bottom there, right there, and then your two 13/16, one right there, and then one somewhere down at the bottom down there, right there. So those are the only two that you have, or the 4 bolts that you have. But that's what it's going to look like on the other side when we're all done. So the only removable parts, when we're going back over here, is your brake rotor, your strong back, which holds your brake pads and your caliper, and your caliper itself up there. So, and that is the only 3 parts that we got. Oh, and your new brake pads, which are right there. So, and your new clips that are in that bag right there. So I'm gonna grease these all up and start slapping it together, but hopefully that'll help somebody. And again, this video can be used on mostly all brakes. Once when you get into the bigger heavy duty vans and trucks, they're a whole lot different, but for the basic car, this is what you're gonna see. Hopefully this helped everybody, and again, this is Navy Mike, and I hope this has helped you. Bye.